The Big 12 football schedule.
Welcome back. So as you can see,
Big 12 football championship making the move this year to Friday, December 4th. Prime time from AT&T Stadium in Arlington, Texas. It will then begin alternating between Friday and Saturday each year. We welcome you back to Inside the 12. Mike Leslie, Taylor McHargue, your first look at the 2026 Big 12 football schedule, and we roll right along into UCF. The Knights in year number 2 under Scott Frost as he gets back to Orlando. Let's take a look at the schedule for the Knights this season. At Pittsburgh, their first non-conference game, their big, non-conference game on the 12th of September. And then, of course, the game against Houston. That game against Houston, a team that had a really good season a year ago that we're going to talk about here in a couple of minutes, should be a good test for Scott Frost's team as they begin their journey under Alonzo Barnett, the transfer from JMU.
October 3rd and October 10th at Houston, at Oklahoma State. That, to me, is the pivotal part of the schedule for UCF, because I actually think this is one of the few teams in the Big 12 where the month of November, it actually lightens up a little bit. I think that may be the not easier part of the schedule, but maybe a little less challenging. But for UCF, 0-5 last year on the road. And so you have those two key in-league games in, again, October 3rd, October 10th. They need to pick off one of those games, because I think if you do that, you create a little bit of momentum. You get into the month of October where last part of October and first part of November where they're largely at home. I think that's going to be the pivotal part of the season, again, for a UCF team that really struggled a year ago on the road, winless on the road in 2025.
And this is a team that at the back end of the schedule may be fighting for bowl eligibility. That stretch in November at Kansas, couple of home games, Arizona State and Iowa State, maybe an opportunity for them to pick a couple off and get themselves to the postseason.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And again, a team that a lot of this is going to hinge on, at some point, you got to start winning these games on the road. And those are two opportunities in the middle of October where they have a 5-game stretch. After that, we're largely at home. I think it's really going to come down to that pivotal part in the month of October and taking that next step to not just get to bowl eligibility, but this is a team in UCF that they have aspirations of competing for this league. Got to be able to win on the road in the Big 12 in order to do that.
They're excited about the transfer quarterback from JMU, Alonzo Barnett. Obviously had a ton of success with the Dukes a year ago, taking them to the college football playoff. He's a kid that is an extreme competitor. They're fired up about this kid. Maybe he can help turn the tide there in Orlando. Next up, the Cincinnati Bearcats, 7-6
UCF. And next up is
out of the gates on fire.
Cincinnati.
In the competition for a Big 12 championship for a while. Brendan Sorsby having a terrific year through that point. He's gone. Things change. Cincinnati's schedule for this season, a challenging one. There's a lot to look at here for Scott Satterfield's team. What's the game that jumps off the page for you?
Obviously, the at Arizona and then home against Texas Tech. Those stand out. BC at home early in non-conference. What stands out most to me, though, about Cincinnati is it sets up very similar to how it laid out a year ago. They've only got one true road game all the way until October 17th when they go to West Virginia, and that one road game being at Arizona. And then the schedule gets really challenging. 3 out of their last 4 at Houston, at Iowa State, and at BYU in the month of November. For Cincinnati, there's going to be a lot that's new next season, like you mentioned. This is another team, and for so many of these teams, this is the case, but especially for Cincinnati, the way that their schedule lays out, they've got to get wins early. When you only have one true road game between week 1 all the way until October 17th, you better stack up your wins early, and then you've got that 3 out of 4 in November. Man, if you haven't built your confidence by that point, that's where these teams, it starts getting really challenging in the month of November, which is exactly what happened a year ago. Because like you mentioned, we were talking about this Cincinnati team as a potential playoff team, and then lose almost everything in the month of November and lose their bowl game as well.
It's hard to talk about momentum when you lose the final 5 games of the season, but they have an opportunity to build it on the front end. Their non-conference schedule, not terribly difficult. They start their conference schedule with some of their perhaps lighter games on the schedule. Certainly, Kansas State and at Arizona is not exactly an easy way to start, but they have their bye week early on at the very least to allow them to get healthy for the really difficult stretch you're talking about late October and into November. We'll see what Scott Satterfield and his team can do in year number 4. Next up, let's talk about the Colorado Buffaloes.
Colorado Buffaloes.
Year number 4. It's hard to believe we're already in year 4 for Deion Sanders. That has gone very fast. 3-9 a year ago. Certainly a down year for the program off of a 9-4 campaign the year prior, trying to get back to that 2024 plateau. Let's get a look at the schedule for the Buffaloes. At Georgia Tech, right out of the gates in week 1 on the road. Certainly a tough test against a Tech team that was in the conversation for a playoff spot down the stretch in November. Weber State and Northwestern, their other two non-conference games, they start at Baylor on the road, and that's going to be a real tough test just because they were 0-5 on the road a year ago. There's a lot that Colorado's got to get turned in the right direction, and starts with starting to win road games.
And it's great that it looks like Julian Lewis will be back and should be the guy, and that's the positive for Colorado. The negative, I think this is the most difficult first half of the schedule in the Big 12 next season. When you look at Georgia Tech, at Northwestern, at Baylor, and then, oh, by the way, you get to host Texas Tech. That is a really challenging first part of the schedule. And so for CU, it's going to be important. Can you split those? Can you pick off? You're going to have to figure out a way to create an upset or two in that mix. Otherwise, you get into the back half of the schedule, and now, just like it was a year ago, you're trying to make sure that you're maintaining your guys, that guys aren't jumping in the portal early, and that you're getting to bowl eligibility. And getting back to what Coach Prime has talked about, having that standard at CU. Last year, 3-9, that was not the expectation. But for Colorado, I do think this is, if it's not the most difficult schedule in the Big 12 this year, it's certainly in the top 2 or 3, and a lot of that is front-loaded in that first part of the schedule.
Yeah, it's a difficult spot right now for Deion Sanders and his program because it is such a hard schedule. What do you think needs to be the focus? You mentioned Julian Lewis being back. They're excited about the transfer from Sacramento State, Ernest Campbell, the wide receiver, FCS All-American. They've got talent, but they need to figure something out with this schedule because it's going to be week after week a meat grinder for them.
Offensive line play has to be better than it was a year ago, and I think you'll see that become even more important in this first half of the schedule because these teams that they're playing early, physicality is going to be a big part of that. I think at Northwestern's one that's a game Colorado should be able to win. If they could pick that up, that helps tremendously with momentum. Next up,
A Houston team that had a tremendous season in 2025. Really one of the surprises, I think, of the Big 12. 10-3 in year number 3 under Willie Fritz. This is a program that has things pointed in the right direction. Connor Wegman is back for 2026. Let's get a look at the Cougar schedule because they are looking to build upon what they did a season ago. At Texas Tech right out of the gates in the conference schedule on September the 19th. A very tough test for Willie Fritz and his team, but I think they feel like they are ready for that type of test.
Having Wegman back is big, and one thing that we talked about a lot during the season is this defense continued to get better as the year went along. And I know they lost some key pieces, but Willie Fritz, I think we've already seen some of the portal activity. I think most of us expect that Houston will reload on the defensive side of the ball, and then can Connor Wegman continue to improve and take even the next step? He was so good for them this season, and a lot of it was just his efficiency and decision-making. Can they take that next step on the offensive side and be more explosive? But for Houston, in terms of their schedule, it is manageable. I think there's a number of games. There are a couple really tough road tests, obviously at Utah being one of them. But this is a team in Houston. This was another one. We just talked about it with Cincinnati. We were talking about Houston as a potential Big 12 championship title contender early part of November a year ago. I think they've got a chance to be right there again next season. This is a manageable schedule for the Cougars. And again, with as much production as they have coming back, I would not doubt at all Houston and Willie Fritz next season.
Late bye week. Coming on Halloween, week 9. So that's something that's sometimes tough to navigate when you get into the injury issues that teams can sometimes have. Their defense loses 5 of their top 7 tacklers from a year ago. Their defense was terrific last season. I do think with just the leadership of Willie Fritz, they'll be able to rebuild that and get that pointed back. But that's a challenge when you lose that much talent on that side of the ball.
There's no doubt. But even going back 2 years ago to 2024, when they were 4-8, Houston's defense was not the problem. And Willie Fritz, historically, going all the way back to his time at Tulane, led by defense. Offense, take care of the football, and then just make sure that you don't put yourself in a bind. I expect Houston, they'll reload. I expect defense to still be strong under Willie Fritz.
All right, plenty more to come on Inside the 12's first look at the 2026 Big 12 football schedule. Iowa State, Oklahoma State, still to come. Can the Cyclones get it rolling again? And year number 1 for a new regime for the Pokes. What will Eric Morris bring to Stillwater?
We'll be right back on the other side.
Wendy